When people say a country is becoming unlivable, that word usually sounds exaggerated. Most places on Earth today are still safe. Most governments still function. Life goes on. What people are actually reacting to is something slower. It's the feeling that the systems around them no longer respond to effort the way they used to. That the rules didn't exactly change overnight, but the outcomes did. This video isn't about collapse. It's about how a handful of countries drifted into situations where daily life became harder to sustain, even though everything still looks normal on the surface. And each one got there for very different reasons. The United States didn't suddenly become difficult to live in. It became difficult gradually, by design, and mostly without saying so out loud. For much of the 20th century, the United States operated on a fairly simple bargain. Work full-time, and the system would absorb most of life's major risks. Healthcare was affordable, housing was accessible, and education didn't require decades of debt. That changed starting in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Healthcare costs began rising faster than wages. Employer-based insurance became the default, tying medical security directly to job stability. At the same time, higher education shifted from public investment toward individual financing, pushing risk onto students before they even entered the workforce. Housing followed a similar path. Zoning restrictions tightened in growing cities, construction slowed, and real estate increasingly became an investment vehicle rather than just shelter. None of these changes felt catastrophic on their own. But together, they created a system where volatility became personal. If a job disappears, healthcare disappears with it. If a medical issue arises, it becomes a financial problem. If rent spikes, relocation might mean losing access to work entirely. The United States still produces wealth at an enormous scale. What changed is who absorbs instability. Over time, more of it shifted downward, from institutions to individuals. That's why, even people who are technically doing well often feel uneasy. Life works, but only as long as nothing goes wrong. Canada took a different path and ran into a different wall. Canada's situation didn't emerge from privatization or risk dumping. It emerged from concentration. For decades, Canada pursued a growth strategy that centered on a small number of metropolitan regions. Immigration, higher education, corporate headquarters, and high-paying jobs are increasingly clustered in cities like Toronto and Vancouver. At the same time, housing supply failed to scale at the same pace. Zoning restrictions limited density. Approval processes moved slowly. Local opposition to development became common. Meanwhile, low interest rates turned housing into a favored investment, pulling in domestic and foreign capital. The result wasn't sudden unaffordability, it was gradual compression. Each year, more people compete for roughly the same number of homes. Rents rose not because landlords suddenly became more aggressive, but because vacancy disappeared. Buying became difficult not because demand spiked overnight, but because supply never caught up. Canada's public systems, healthcare, transit, social services were designed to work at a certain population density. As more people piled into the same cities, those systems strained. What makes this especially frustrating for residents is that many followed the script exactly as written: education, stable work, and responsible financial behavior. The bottleneck wasn't effort. It was physical and structural. Life in Canada didn't become unstable in the dramatic sense. It became crowded, slow, and increasingly competitive in very specific places. The UK story is less about crowding and more about time. The United Kingdom's difficulties are rooted in long-term stagnation rather than sudden disruption. Following the post-war period, the UK gradually transitioned away from manufacturing toward services and finance. Productivity growth slowed, but living standards were maintained for a time through rising property values and household debt. After the 2008 financial crisis, that model began to break down. Wage growth stalled. Public investment slowed. Housing costs continued to rise, especially in and around London, while home building lagged behind population growth. Then came a series of shocks: Brexit, energy, price volatility, inflation layered on top of an already fragile baseline. What residents experience now isn't collapse, but exhaustion. People work, commute, and budget carefully, yet milestones that once felt normal homeownership, savings, upward mobility remain out of reach. Public services still exist, but feel thinner. Infrastructure still functions, but shows where. The overall sense isn't panic. It's a quiet realization that the future doesn't look meaningfully better than the present. Australia followed a more prosperous path and ended up with a different imbalance. Australia's challenges stem from a period of sustained success. For much of the late 20th and early 21st century, Australia benefited from strong population growth, resource exports, and a stable financial system. Housing prices rose steadily, reinforcing the idea that property ownership was the safest path to long-term security. Government policy supported this view. Tax incentives favored property investment, credit remained accessible. Housing increasingly became not just a shelter, but the backbone of household wealth. Over time, this created a divide that wasn't immediately obvious. Those who entered the housing market early saw their wealth grow passively. Those who didn't found themselves paying more each year just to remain in place. Wages increased, but not at the same pace as housing costs. Eventually, housing stopped being a stepping stone and became a gatekeeper. Even skilled professionals began to feel locked out of stability unless they already owned assets. Long commutes, rising insurance costs, and climate-related risks added further pressure. Australia still offers a high standard of living, but access to it increasingly depends on timing rather than effort. Germany's issues are rooted in something else entirely: continuity. Germany built its modern economy around reliability. Manufacturing strength, export dominance, predictable energy supplies, and a dense regulatory framework created stability across decades. For a long time, this model worked exceptionally well, but it was also tightly optimized for a specific global environment. When energy prices rose, supply chains fractured, and digital transformation accelerated elsewhere, Germany's systems proved slow to adjust. Bureaucratic processes that once ensured quality and order became obstacles to speed. Housing shortages emerged in major cities despite tenant protections. Infrastructure projects stalled under layers of regulation. Younger workers faced high taxes alongside limited flexibility. Germany still functions smoothly compared to many countries. The issue isn't dysfunction, it's responsiveness. Change happens, but slowly, and often after years of pressure build. For people early in their careers, this can feel constraining. Safe, but narrow. Predictable, but heavy. France's situation comes from a different kind of rigidity. France invested heavily in worker protection and social stability, especially after periods of political unrest in the 20th century. Strong labor laws, generous benefits, and centralized planning were meant to provide security and cohesion. Over time, these protections became deeply embedded. Permanent contracts offer stability, but are difficult to obtain. Employers hesitate to hire because reducing staff later is costly. Entrepreneurship involves navigating complex administrative systems. This creates segmentation. Some people are well protected and stable. Others remain on temporary contracts, unemployed, or outside the system entirely. Moving between those categories is difficult. Housing shortages in major cities compound the issue, particularly for younger people trying to establish independence. France isn't marked by desperation. It's marked by immobility, a sense that positions harden early and opportunities narrow over time. South Korea illustrates what happens when opportunity exists but demands everything in return. South Korea's transformation over the last half-century has been extraordinary. Rapid industrialization, educational expansion, and global competitiveness lifted millions into the middle class. But the pace of that transformation came with costs. Competition became embedded early in schooling, testing, university placement, and hiring. Success paths narrowed. Prestige concentrated in specific institutions and neighborhoods, especially around Seoul. Housing prices in the capital surged. Work hours remained long. Social expectations around performance stayed intense. Over time, pressure accumulated without release. Young people delay families, not out of apathy, but calculation. Financial and emotional costs felt too high. Birth rates fell sharply. Burnout rose. South Korea didn't fail to provide an opportunity. It failed to provide slack room to fall, rest, or choose differently. New Zealand's challenge is quieter, but no less real. New Zealand offers safety, stability, and natural beauty. What it lacks is scale. Its economy is small. Many industries are limited in size. Wages tend to lag behind comparable countries, while housing costs climb sharply during periods of low interest rates and population growth. Geographic isolation raises the price of imports. Career ladders are short. For many professions, advancement eventually requires leaving the country. This creates a steady outward flow of younger, ambitious residents. Those who stay often value lifestyle over growth, but that trade-off becomes harder to maintain as costs rise. New Zealand remains livable in a day-to-day sense. What's difficult is imagining long-term progress without hitting a ceiling. None of these countries became unlivable for the same reason. Some concentrated too much, some privatized risk, some protected stability until it froze, some pushed competition too far. What they share is this: their systems evolved slowly while expectations stayed the same. And when effort stops producing forward motion, people don't panic, they disengage. That's when a place starts to feel unlivable, even if everything still looks fine. And if you want more deep dives like that, hit that subscribe button.